I don't even know why I'm writing this, except maybe to finally get it all out. Maybe because saying it to a screen feels safer than saying it to a friend who'll look at me with that pity I hate more than anything else. 3 years ago, I was Eleanor Miller, Architect of the Year, happily married to Victor Hastings, the man everyone said had a smile that could open any door. Now? I'm just the woman in the wheelchair. The woman people feel sorry for. The woman whose husband still shows up on Instagram smiling like he's auditioning for a Rolex ad while I try not to scream into the void. Let me back up. Before the accident, my life looked perfect. It wasn't. But from the outside? Oh, it was a damn magazine spread. Big firm, big clients, big projects. Victor and I met at a fundraiser for the Downtown Restoration Initiative. He was charming in that way only men who've never had to lift anything heavier than a golf club can be. Still, I fell hard. He was warm, attentive, and always said the right thing. I was 33, riding high on my career, and stupid enough to think love like that could only be genuine. Fast forward. We got married. Moved into a sleek modern home I designed myself. Everyone called us a power couple. I thought we were. Then came the job site. Midtown condo high-rise, 24 stories. I was doing a final walkthrough with the foreman. It was late. Windy. Someone had left a metal panel unsecured. It fell, fast and hard, and clipped the scaffolding I was standing on. I don't remember hitting the ground. I just remember waking up in the hospital, staring at the ceiling, and not being able to move my legs. Spinal cord injury. Incomplete paraplegia. I was told there was a chance I could regain some mobility. But it would take years. Painful rehab. Uncertainty. Most days I couldn't even hold my own bladder. I was 36 and suddenly living like someone decades older. Victor cried. He held my hand. He kissed my forehead. In front of doctors, nurses, friends, and family, he was the image of devotion. But behind closed doors? He stopped touching me. Not just sexually, though that dried up so fast it was like a faucet turned off, but even casually. No more hand on my back. No more goodnight kiss. He started working late. Golfing more. When he was home, he slept in the guest room because your medical equipment keeps me up. And I told myself, he's grieving too. He's adjusting. Give it time. I gave it time. 3 years of it. In that time, I learned how to dress myself again. Learned how to will into the shower and not cry when I looked in the mirror. I built a small design studio at home, tried to stay connected to my firm, but it was hard. They smiled, they nodded, but the phone stopped ringing. And Victor? He played the part. Posted loving anniversary tributes. Pushed my chair at family events. Told everyone I was doing amazing. Meanwhile, at home, he avoided me like I was radioactive. One night, I wheeled out of the bedroom and found him in the kitchen, whispering into his phone, "She's still awake. I'll call you after she's out." I should have said something. I should have asked who he was talking to. But I didn't. I went back to bed, heart hammering, and stared at the ceiling for hours. That was the first time I really felt it in my bones, that something was deeply, deeply wrong. Then came Olivia Rhodes. She was new. Fresh out of grad school. Hired into Victor's marketing firm 6 months ago. She was bright. Friendly. Pretty in that polished Instagram kind of way. We had dinner once. She complimented my work and said she loved how strong I was. I smiled and thanked her while trying not to scream. 2 weeks later, I saw a charge on our joint credit card, Bel Ami Spa, couples package. I hadn't been to a spa since the accident. And Victor sure as hell wasn't taking me. I sat with that receipt in my lap for a long time. Then I started looking closer. Passwords he'd left saved on the home computer. Email threads. Hotel bookings. One especially cruel message from him to Olivia that I can't unread. She barely knows what day it is half the time. You've got nothing to worry about. My hand shook so badly I dropped the mouse. I wanted to scream. Throw something. Instead, I saved every email, every receipt, every text. And I waited. That was when I noticed something else. Victor was refilling my medication himself. Bringing me tea every night with my pills already dissolved. It seemed sweet. Thoughtful. Until I asked my doctor about one particular drug dosage, and he blinked. "You're not on that anymore," he said. "We took you off 6 months ago." Except I hadn't stopped taking it. That night, I poured my tea down the sink. 2 weeks later, I felt stronger. Not healed. But different. Clearer. And that's when I found the offshore accounts. But I'll get to that. Right now, I'm sitting here in the dark, typing this while Victor's at a client dinner. And I know he's not alone. I know exactly who he's with. And I know something else too. I'm not going to be his victim much longer. The day I met her, Olivia Rhodes wore red. Not a fire engine red, not loud like that. It was deeper. Like blood on silk. She had the kind of presence that made men stand straighter and women second-guess their lipstick. Victor brought her to one of those art gallery fundraisers he's always pretending to care about. "This is Olivia," he said, placing a warm hand on her back like he'd done to me 100 times before the accident. "She's one of our brightest stars at the firm." She smiled. Tilted her head just so. Extended a hand I couldn't reach without wheeling closer. I hesitated, and in that pause, I saw it. Pity. Then she masked it, fast as lightning, and said, "I've heard so much about you, Eleanor. Your designs are incredible." I smiled back. "I always do." That's the role, the brave, graceful woman in the chair. The one who makes everyone feel inspired and unthreatened. Victor never introduced women to me. Not even his assistants. But he brought Olivia. Now I know why. The night after that fundraiser, I watched from the upstairs landing as Victor carried in a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I waited for the sound of the guest bedroom door. Waited to hear the clink of glass. Nothing. No one laughed. No one toasted. The house stayed quiet. But the next morning, his shirt smelled like her perfume. I don't wear perfume anymore, it clashes with the creams and meds. I started watching. Listening. Olivia's name came up more and more. Victor's phone was always face down. His laptop required a new password. I asked once, casually, like a joke, and he smiled like I was the child who'd asked where babies come from. He wasn't even trying to hide it. That's the part that broke something in me. Not the affair. Not yet. Just, the ease of it. The arrogance. I started looking where I wasn't supposed to. A backup iPad, synced with his email. He'd forgotten it existed. Maybe he thought I would never bother. Or maybe he thought I couldn't. He was wrong. The first email I read was from Olivia. "Can't stop thinking about you last night. I can still feel you." She doesn't suspect a thing, right? The second was Victor's reply. "She suspects nothing. And even if she does, what can she do from a wheelchair?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was shocked, but because I wasn't. I'd known. Not consciously. Not entirely. But something inside me had already accepted it. The confirmation didn't bring rage. Just this, coldness. Like someone poured ice water down my spine. I didn't cry. I just kept scrolling. There were photos. Messages. Bookings. One from Olivia with an attachment labeled ultrasound. JPG. I didn't open it. Not right away. Instead, I forwarded everything to a hidden folder I set up on a secure drive, one that syncs to a cloud account he doesn't know exists. I'm not tech savvy, but I'm determined. And when you're in a wheelchair with a cheating husband and too much time, you learn. A week later, I opened the ultrasound. 12 weeks. Due date next spring. Victor's response? "I'm ready. I've been ready since she got hurt." That night, I didn't drink the tea he brought me. I poured it into the potted orchid he'd given me for our anniversary. It died within 3 days. My doctor confirmed it a few days later. The medication I was supposedly off was being crushed into my nightly drinks. A heavy muscle relaxant. One that would keep me weak, foggy, tired. Just enough to keep me stable. Except I wasn't unstable. I was being drugged. I fired my home nurse the next day. She looked shocked. Hurt, even. I didn't care. Next came the therapist, the one Victor picked for me after the accident. I stopped seeing her and found my own, someone out of network. Her name's Dr. Susan Hale. She doesn't pity me. Doesn't tell me to focus on gratitude. She tells me to get mad. To get even. She tells me I've survived worse. And that's when I brought in Owen. Owen Carter. Private investigator. Used to be a cop. Now works in the gray areas no one wants to touch. I found him through my sister, Claire, the same sister I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. I called her. I don't know why. Just, one night, I stared at the ceiling, and her name came to me. Claire picked up on the first ring. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't talk about the fight that made us strangers. She just said, "What do you need?" I said, "Help." She said, "I'm coming." Claire showed up the next morning with a duffel bag and a baseball bat. "Just in case," she said. I laughed for the first time in weeks. She introduced me to Owen. He's rough around the edges, but he listens. Doesn't flinch at ugly truths. He dug through Victor's financials, followed him on his business trips, and traced the ownership of the construction company that ran the job site where I got hurt. It wasn't an accident. Not completely. Owen hasn't proven it yet, not in court, not on paper. But the subcontractor who signed off on the safety report? He's a cousin of one of Victor's college buddies. The panel that fell wasn't properly secured. The inspection was falsified. And guess who's been funneling payments to that same subcontractor from an offshore account? Victor. I've got photos. Signatures. Spreadsheets. Owen's digging deeper, but what we have already, it's enough to make a hell of a story. And that's exactly what I plan to do with it. Because Victor has a plan of his own. He thinks I don't know. He thinks I'll sit there smiling in the corner while he announces his new business partner at the company's 15-year gala next month. Olivia will be glowing, round-bellied, all perfect in white and gold. He's planning to humiliate me. Erase me. He forgot who he married. I might be in a wheelchair. But I'm not broken. Not anymore. There's something surreal about pretending your marriage isn't on fire while everyone around you keeps commenting on how happy you look. They say things like, "You're such a strong couple. Victor's so devoted. He's lucky to have you." And I smile. Always smile. When your legs stop working, the world starts treating you like porcelain. Like you'll break if anyone tells the truth. So you learn to perform. You become gracious, sweet, brave, a goddamn inspiration. Meanwhile, your husband's sleeping with someone half your age and crushing pills into your nightly tea. But let's talk about the money. Because that's where it always ends up, doesn't it? After Owen confirmed the falsified safety report from the accident, we started tracing the money. Offshore accounts. Shell companies. Real estate trusts registered in Belize, Panama, even Cyprus. I'd seen Victor do well over the years, fast cars, new suits, private flights for investor meetings, but I always thought it was just the business thriving. Turns out, he was thriving off me. My name is on almost everything. The architectural firm I co-founded, he's been skimming profits from there too. Quietly selling off stock options, redirecting payments from clients into private accounts, even forging my signature on a licensing deal I never agreed to. And the best part? Some of the medical expenses, my rehab, equipment, in-home care, were filed under a fraudulent disability trust that he manages. I thought I was weak because of the injury. I was weak because I trusted him. Owen laid it all out for me on a Tuesday afternoon. He didn't sugarcoat anything. Just handed me a folder the thickness of a small phone book and said, "This is enough to bury him." But we're not there yet. I opened it. Photocopies. Account numbers. Fake invoices. I stared at my own signature and didn't recognize the handwriting. Did he forge this? I asked. Yup. He's not even left-handed. Owen grunted. Not even trying to be careful. Arrogant bastard. Claire was pacing in the background. She kept glancing toward the kitchen, where she'd left her coffee, but didn't touch it. What about the accident? She finally asked. Is there any proof it was intentional? Owen shook his head. Not yet. But I've got a guy digging into it. We'll know more soon. I didn't say anything. Just sat there, staring at the paperwork, trying to feel something. Anger, maybe. Grief. But all I felt was this hollow, numb focus. Like I was back in college, staring down a final I hadn't studied for. Only this time, the test was my life. And the man I loved had failed me in every possible way. That night, I started physical therapy again. Real therapy. The kind my doctor had recommended, not the pill-pushing nurse Victor hired. I didn't tell anyone. Just had Claire drive me to the facility under her name. I worked with a woman named Lena, who didn't flinch when I said I wanted to try standing again. She didn't coddle me. Didn't pity me. She looked at my file, looked at my legs, and said, "Let's find out." The first time I put weight on my legs, it felt like fire. Not metaphorical fire. Actual pain. Muscle screaming. Bones creaking. My arms shook so hard on the parallel bars I thought they'd snap. But I did it. 5 seconds. Then 10. Then 20. Lena looked at me with no expression, just a nod. "You've got more in you." Victor still brought me tea that night. Still smiled as he handed it to me. Still asked, "Everything okay?" And I smiled back. Perfect. That week, I opened a new bank account in my maiden name. I hired a lawyer. Not for divorce, not yet. For protection. Her name's Marissa Tran. Smart. Young. The kind of woman who sees the worst in people and fights harder because of it. I gave her everything. The files. The finances. The texts. The ultrasound. She read through them like a machine. Took notes. Barely blinked. "Do you want to go public?" she asked. Eventually. "Do you want to press charges?" Not yet. She studied me. "You're planning something." I didn't answer. She smiled. Good. Marissa started the paperwork. Protection for my assets. Transfer of ownerships. She drafted letters of intent. Began setting legal traps, all quiet, all clean. And still, Victor didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't care. Maybe he was so convinced I'd stay quiet, stay compliant, that he forgot I used to build skyscrapers out of steel and concrete with nothing but willpower and blueprints. That weekend, I rolled into his office when he was on a Zoom call with Olivia. He panicked for just a second, not because I saw her, but because I saw the call. "I thought you were resting," he said. I smiled. "Just bored. Wanted to say hi." Olivia's voice chirped from the laptop. "Hi, Eleanor. You look great." And I said, "Congrats, by the way." Victor froze. Olivia blinked. "On what?" "The baby." She turned white. Victor slammed the laptop shut. I laughed. "Relax. I'm not going to make a scene." But I was. Not yet. Soon. And it wouldn't be a scene. It would be a reckoning. There's a strange thing that happens when you start getting stronger. People still treat you like you're weak. And if you're smart, you let them. You nod. You smile. You let them push your chair even when you don't need the help. You let them carry things you can carry yourself. You let them talk over you, make plans for you, decide what's best for you. And all the while, you're planning. Victor thinks he's the star of the show, always has. And now he's planning his grand finale. The company's 15th anniversary gala is in 3 weeks. Black tie. Big venue. Big donors. I helped design the first office. I designed the goddamn logo. But I haven't been on the invite list for years. Not since the accident. But this year? I got a handwritten invitation. Victor left it on my desk with a note that said, "Would love for you to come. It's been too long. We've all missed you." The fake warmth nearly made me laugh. Claire read it and said, "He's setting you up." I nodded. "He wants to humiliate me. He's gonna introduce her. And the baby." Claire flinched. "You sure you want to go?" "I'm not going," I said. "I'm taking over." She grinned. "Damn right you are." The plan was already in motion. Owen had gathered more dirt, including proof that Victor had personally signed off on faulty materials at the job site where I was injured. There was still no smoking gun to prove intent, but we didn't need a smoking gun. We had patterns. Money trails. Medical manipulation. Financial fraud. And a timeline that painted a very ugly picture. Marissa, my lawyer, was surgical. She filed quiet motions with the board of Victor's company, requesting a full audit under the partnership clause. I'm still technically a shareholder. Not enough to sway votes, but enough to demand answers. The board hasn't responded yet. But they will. I hired a media consultant, too. A quiet one. She's building a press kit. Just in case things need to go public. We're not talking scandal blogs, we're talking exposés, professional, backed by evidence. She's got reporters on standby. But none of that matters without the moment. The moment is what I've been building toward. The moment when Victor thinks he's won. The moment I stand up and take it all back. Lena, my physical therapist, has been pushing me hard. The first day I walked with a cane, I cried in the car afterward. Not because of the pain. Because of what it meant. 3 years ago, I thought my body was dead below the waist. Turns out it was just waiting for me to fight harder. I can walk about 10 steps now. Not well. Not fast. But enough. The cane is black lacquered steel. Solid. Clean lines. I had it custom made to match the outfit I'm wearing to the gala. Oh, the outfit. Claire helped me pick it out. A midnight blue gown that drapes over the chair, yes, but also flows when I stand. Backless, elegant, strong. Not sexy, not flashy. Powerful. The kind of thing that says, I'm not here to be pitted. I'm here to be remembered. Victor's assistant sent me the itinerary for the gala. He'll be speaking around 9:15 p.m. closing speech. Announcing an exciting new chapter. That's what the email said. I don't need a script to know what he'll say. He'll thank everyone. He'll get a little misty. Then he'll introduce Olivia, his partner in life and business, with a hand on her stomach and a smile like she just won the lottery. He thinks I'll be seated quietly near the back. He thinks I'll smile and clap and pretend none of this has torn me to shreds. He thinks I'm still the woman who forgave him for the first lie. The second. The third. But here's the thing about women like me, we remember everything. Every bruise. Every sleepless night. Every sideways look. Every time someone called us brave when they really meant broken. And we wait. I've got a speech of my own. Just a few minutes long. It starts soft. Builds slow. Then hits like a hammer. I'll name every shell company. Every forged document. I'll show proof of financial fraud, health manipulation, infidelity. I'll mention the panel that fell and the safety inspection that never happened. I won't accuse him of attempted murder. Not directly. I'll let the audience draw their own conclusions. Victor's company is tied to federal contracts. Public funding. If even a fraction of what I say is true, and it is, he's finished. And when I stand, slowly, carefully, visibly, with my cane in one hand and the mic in the other, he'll know he never broke me. He just gave me a reason to rise. I've rehearsed it. Over and over. Not just the words. The pacing. The tone. The silence after I say certain names. I've worked on my posture, the moment I rise, the grip on the cane. I've practiced not crying. Not once in the real thing. Victor destroyed my life. Now I'm going to burn his down, with truth, with evidence, and with dignity. And the part that really makes me laugh? He invited me. I didn't sleep the night before. I lay awake in the dark, listening to the soft hum of the machines in the hallway, oxygen for the cat, heater for the water therapy tank, fridge running its low whir. Everything sounded louder when your nerves are doing somersaults. Victor snored down the hall. I could hear him. I wonder sometimes if he ever imagined what it felt like, hearing the man who wrecked your life snoring in perfect peace a few doors down. I got up at 5:30 a.m. and started my stretches. Lena had warned me, adrenaline would carry me through, but I had to prep my body like I was running a marathon. Every joint, every muscle. I'd been walking with a cane for less than 2 weeks. 5 minutes on my feet still left me shaking. Tonight, I needed 10. By noon, Claire came over with the dress. She didn't say much. Just laid it out on the bed and zipped open the garment bag. The fabric shimmered like water. Deep navy, almost black under low light. Sleeveless. High neck. Elegant. I ran my fingers along the silk and exhaled. "Don't cry," Claire said. "We already did your makeup once." I didn't cry. I just nodded. By 4 p.m. my hair was done. Pulled back, clean. No frills. Just strength. By 5 o'clock, the lawyer called. "Marissa, everything's in place. If you need to go nuclear, one click. Press will have the files in 5 minutes." Me, and the board? Marissa, 3 members confirmed attendance. One's already suspicious. They'll hear you. Loud and clear. By 6 o'clock, I was in the car. Claire drove. Owen followed behind on his motorcycle, not because I asked him to, because he said he didn't trust Victor to not pull something. And maybe he was right. The venue was everything Victor loved: glass walls, marble floors, chandeliers the size of tree trunks. A rented fantasy. And everyone was there. Suits, gowns, flashes of jewelry. The smell of perfume and ambition. Cameras in every corner. A string quartet playing some tired Vivaldi piece near the champagne bar. I was wheeled in through the front door, deliberately. Let them see the chair one last time. Let them think I'm still the tragic wife in the background. Olivia arrived 30 minutes later. Wearing white. I'll give her this, she looked radiant. Glossy hair. Baby bump on full display. Victor stood beside her in a black tux, smug as hell, shaking hands like he was already running for office. He saw me across the room and his smile faltered for just a second. Then it came back, wider. I raised a glass. Didn't drink it. Just raised it. The speeches started at 8 o'clock. Light ones first. Former partners, investors, a city councilwoman with too much Botox. All of them praising Victor's vision and resilience. At 9:10, Victor stepped up to the mic. His tux was perfect. Cufflinks shining. Smile plastered on like it had never cracked. He started soft. Talked about the company's humble beginnings, the mission, the obstacles. Then he got sentimental. Played a short video montage, highlights from the firm's biggest projects, including one with me, pre-accident, smiling in a hard hat. People clapped. He waited. Then he smiled and said, "But tonight is not just about the past. It's about the future. And I'd like you to meet the woman who's going to help lead that future, someone brilliant, passionate, and, I'm proud to say, the mother of my child." He extended a hand. And Olivia walked up, glowing and smug and victorious. That's when I stood. The cane clicked once against the floor. Then again. Heads turned. I walked. Slow. Deliberate. Every step felt like lifting a planet. But I walked. Gasps. A few claps. Murmurs. Someone dropped a champagne glass. Victor's face? Like someone had pulled the rug from under his entire life. I took the mic from him. Held it steady. Waited for silence. And then I said, "Before we celebrate the future, I think the truth deserves a moment." I turned toward the crowd. And I started talking. About the accident. About the forged reports. About the offshore accounts, the fake disability trust, the manipulated prescriptions. About the affair. The baby. The gaslighting. The exploitation. The fraud. Every word landed like a blade. Calm. Controlled. Devastating. People weren't looking at Victor anymore. They were looking at me. The woman he thought he had broken. I ended with this. You all came here tonight to honor 15 years of success. But success built on lies isn't something to celebrate, it's something to expose. I may have spent the last 3 years in a wheelchair. But tonight? I walk on my own. And I leave this place not as a victim, but as the one who finally told the truth. Silence. Then applause. Slow. Then rising. Victor tried to speak. Tried to grab the mic back. But Olivia stepped between us. She looked at me. Then back at him. And slapped him across the face. The sound echoed through the hall. And that's when I knew, this wasn't just the beginning of his end. It was the beginning of mine. The funny thing about truth is, it doesn't echo. It lands. And after it lands, it's quiet. For a moment after I finished my speech, there was nothing but silence. Not awkward. Not stunned. Just quiet. Then Olivia slapped Victor so hard the entire ballroom flinched. That sound, her hand on his cheek, rang louder than anything I'd said. She didn't say a word. Just stared at him like he was something she'd scraped off her shoe. Then she turned, grabbed her clutch, and walked out through a crowd of cameras and cocktails and stunned executives. Victor didn't follow. He didn't say a damn thing. He just stood there, blinking, like the universe had suddenly rewritten itself and he was the only one who hadn't gotten the memo. I handed the mic back to the event organizer, a poor man who looked like he wanted to disappear into the stage. Then I turned, took one step with my cane, and sat back in the chair Claire had wheeled in behind me. People didn't rush over. That's another thing about truth, it clears a room. Nobody wants to stand too close to a grenade after it's gone off. Except for Claire. And Owen. And Marissa, who was standing near the side, already typing on her phone. Probably alerting the press team. Probably sending out the files. It was done. I felt nothing. Not relief. Not victory. Just the same cold clarity I'd been carrying since the day I read Olivia's name in that email. We left quietly. Claire pushed me out the way we came in, past valet guys who suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. By the time we got back to the car, my phone had 6 missed calls. 3 from Victor. 2 from his lawyer. 1 from an unknown number that I can only guess was damage control. I didn't answer any of them. When we got home, Claire poured us 2 glasses of wine, handed me one, and said, "You just made a lot of enemies tonight." I said, "I'm not afraid of enemies anymore." She nodded. Good. The next morning, everything started moving fast. Headlines. Local architect drops bombshell accusations at gala. Company founder accused of fraud, medical exploitation, infidelity. Wife walks again, and straight into the spotlight. The last one made me roll my eyes. I wasn't trying to be inspirational. I was trying to be heard. The story went national within 48 hours. Owen said it was the timing, end-of-year news cycle, board editors, and the perfect storm of scandal and betrayal. Victor tried to deny everything at first. He released a statement. Called me confused and deeply unwell. Said I'd misunderstood his intentions. That didn't last long. Within 3 days, one of his partners resigned. Within 5, 2 employees came forward anonymously, one with records showing he altered invoices. Another with proof he redirected funds from a disabled employee's insurance policy years ago. And then? Then the IRS got involved. When the financial documents Marissa submitted to the board leaked, including offshore accounts, fake trusts, and the shell companies, it was only a matter of time. Victor was arrested on a Thursday morning. I watched it live on the news. He wore the same coat he'd worn the night of the gala. His hair was neat. His face was pale. He didn't say a word as they walked him out in cuffs. They said the charges included fraud, tax evasion, and unlawful medical administration. They didn't mention attempted manslaughter. Not yet. But that investigation is ongoing. Olivia? She hasn't spoken publicly. I don't blame her. She was caught in the same web. Her baby is due in 2 months. I heard from someone close to her that she's moved in with her sister out in Colorado. She's keeping the baby. Claire asked me how I feel about that. I said, that baby didn't lie to me. Victor's company froze his assets. He was removed from the board. The firm issued a formal apology and opened an internal investigation. I was contacted, formally, about a possible settlement. I haven't answered them yet. I'm not sure I want money from a company that looked the other way for years. But I'll think about it. Right now, I'm thinking about something else. Something more important. Me. My life. My recovery. The silence after the truth is strange. Like someone turned off a machine that had been running so loud in your ears for so long, You didn't know what quiet sounded like. And in that silence, you start to remember who you were before it all broke. You start to rebuild. Slow. Careful. Like the first steps after paralysis. I wake up every morning now with pain in my legs. But it's earned pain. It's the kind of pain that tells me I'm not done yet. I've walked every day since the gala. Not far. Not fast. But further than I thought I ever would again. 3 months after the gala, the house was quiet again. Too quiet. No press calls, no lawyers, no reporters lurking outside the gate pretending to be just passing by. The circus had moved on, the world found new headlines, and Victor's mugshot was buried under fresher scandals. But I was still here. Still standing, most days. Still rebuilding. The first thing I did was donate the wheelchair. Not out of pride. Out of necessity. If I kept it around, I'd be tempted. Tempted to fall back into it on hard days. Tempted to let my body regress, to let fear win. But I'd already done that for 3 years. This next chapter needed something else. So I started designing again. At first, it was just sketches. Things for me. For the house. Then I started thinking about what had helped me claw my way back, and what hadn't. Hospitals are cold. Rehab centers colder. Everything is beige, sterile, impersonal. Designed more for insurance forms than human healing. So I designed something new. A space that felt like sunlight. Softwood floors, skylights, gardens that wrapped around therapy rooms like arms. A building that breathed. One you could enter in pieces and walk out whole. I called it Reclaim. Claire said the name hit like a punch and a promise. I told her that's exactly what I meant. Marissa helped set up the nonprofit. Owen connected me to donors. Within 6 weeks, I had the capital. Within 10, I had zoning approvals. Turns out the city was eager to show it still cared about the woman whose spine was nearly shattered under their contractor's negligence. And as poetic justice goes, part of the funding came from Victor's seized assets. The grand opening is scheduled for next spring. There's still a long way to go. Permits. Construction. Hiring staff. Licensing. But it's real. It's mine. Something good, finally, born from something ugly. One morning, I was in the studio reviewing floor plans when the doorbell rang. Claire wasn't home. Owen wasn't due for another 2 hours. I nearly didn't answer it. But I did. And there she was. Olivia. No makeup. Hair pulled back in a messy bun. Jeans. Belly big now, she looked exhausted. Not sad, not apologetic. Just, hello. Can I come in? She asked. I stared at her for a moment. Then I stepped aside. She didn't sit when I offered. Just stood near the entryway, arms wrapped around herself. I don't want anything, she said. I nodded. I didn't come to apologize either. Not because I don't feel sorry. Just because I know it wouldn't mean anything. Another nod. She looked around, took in the space. My drawings. The framed newspaper clipping on the wall. Architect exposes fraud, rebuilds. I didn't know about the drugs, she said quietly. Or the forged signatures. I believed him. I really did. I know, I said. Silence. She finally looked me in the eye. I'm keeping the baby. I figured. Her voice cracked just a little. I want to do better. For him. For her. Whatever it is. I watched her. No anger. No empathy either. Just observation. She was broken in her own way, but not by me. By her own choices. What do you need from me, Olivia? I asked. She let out a breath. Nothing. Just wanted you to know. I'm not hiding. I'm not proud either. But I'm not hiding. I nodded once more. That's something, I said. She turned to leave. But at the door, she paused. He never stopped talking about you, she said without turning back. Even when he was with me. I didn't answer. She left. I closed the door. And locked it. Not out of fear. Out of finality. Victor was in jail awaiting trial. His lawyers were trying everything, but the paper trail was too thick. Even if he walked, his reputation was dead. Olivia would raise that child without him. And I'd never be the same woman I was before the accident. But I'd become something else. Someone better. Someone forged in silence, betrayal, and pain, but not defined by them. They called me as a witness. That wasn't the plan. I didn't want to testify, not because I was afraid, but because I'd said my piece at the gala. Everything else, I wanted handled behind closed doors, with facts and signatures and people in suits arguing over dollars and ethics. But the prosecution insisted. They said my testimony could put the final nail in Victor's coffin. So I said yes. The courthouse was beige, always is. Everything government-owned is some shade of surrender. The walls were dull, the chairs hard, and the hallway smelled like floor wax and anxiety. Claire sat behind me. Owen stood by the door, arms crossed like a watchdog with a badge no one gave him. Victor walked in wearing a suit 2 sizes too big. He looked older. Thinner. Jaw clenched. Eyes dead. He didn't look at me. Good. I took the stand. They swore me in. The prosecutor asked me simple questions: timeline, symptoms, prescriptions, company contracts. I kept my voice steady. I didn't cry. I didn't crack. Then came the defense. A man with slicked back hair and a patronizing tone. He asked if I might have misremembered the doses I was prescribed. I told him I kept every bottle. He asked if maybe I exaggerated the emotional strain of my husband's betrayal. I asked if he'd ever been poisoned by someone who kissed him goodnight. The jury didn't move. But they felt it. It lasted 35 minutes, my testimony. That's all. But it landed. Like it always does when you tell the truth and don't flinch. Victor didn't take the stand. His lawyer said he had nothing to gain. What he meant was, he'll bury himself if he opens his mouth. They played clips from the gala. Read out email chains. Showed banking statements. His defense team tried to frame it all as complicated business practices and personal mistakes unrelated to criminal intent. But intent was clear. He'd taken from me my health, my money, my name, and thought he'd walk away untouched. 2 days later, the jury returned. Guilty on 3 counts of financial fraud. Guilty on 2 counts of falsifying medical documentation. Guilty on 1 count of criminal negligence. They didn't charge him with attempted murder. They couldn't prove deliberate sabotage of the construction site beyond a shadow of a doubt. But it didn't matter. He's serving 8 to 12 years. And he'll never work in the industry again. The sentencing was quiet. I didn't go. Didn't need to. I already knew what he'd look like in shackles. A week later, I walked, onto the job site where it all happened. The tower was finished now. Tall, glass-lit, sterile. The kind of building people admire without knowing what it cost. I stood on the sidewalk across the street, cane in hand, staring up at the 24th floor. It's funny, I used to look at buildings and see possibilities. Now, I see the skeletons inside them. I crossed the street. There was a bench not far from the entrance. I sat and watched workers go in and out. None of them knew me. None of them knew what happened here. That panel that fell? It wasn't replaced. They'd removed the entire platform and re-engineered the support structure. Smart. Safe. But too late for me. And yet, I didn't feel anger. I felt steady. Like the building wasn't the place where I broke. It was the place where I began. Because it forced everything into the open. The marriage. The fraud. The weakness I mistook for love. I took one last look at the tower. Then I stood. And walked away without looking back. 16 months after the gala, the doors to Reclaim opened. We held a soft launch, no press, no ribbon cutting, just people. Survivors. Fighters. People who'd lost pieces of themselves and were clawing them back inch by inch. The first patient was a woman named Maria. Early 40s. Car accident. Spinal injury. Same as mine, incomplete paraplegia. She wheeled herself in with her teenage daughter beside her, and this look in her eyes like hope was too dangerous to touch. I knew that look. I'd lived in it. She didn't recognize me, not right away. Eventually, one of the staff whispered, "That's the Eleanor Miller." And Maria just stared at me, like I was some urban legend who walked again. "I read about you," she said. "Didn't think it was real." "I didn't either," I said. We shared a smile. Not a pretty one. A real one. That morning, I sat with her through her intake assessment. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. I sat in the corner of the therapy room, quietly, watching her legs tremble as the PT asked her to push down on a resistance band. She couldn't. But she tried. And I knew she'd come back tomorrow. And the day after. Because this place? It wasn't just about therapy. It was about dignity. I'd designed everything with one purpose in mind, no pity. Just possibility. Wide hallways for chairs and walkers. Natural light. Heated floors. Adjustable everything. Art on the walls painted by people who've been through the fire and lived to tell it. Every inch of it, a middle finger to every beige rehab room I'd ever been trapped in. We filled up fast. I hired staff who knew what it meant to start over, therapists who'd once been patients, doctors who didn't talk down to people, counselors who listened. People called it revolutionary. I called it overdue. On the day of the full public opening, I stood in front of the welcome desk, wearing navy again, a quiet nod to that night. I don't wear black anymore. That color belongs to mourning, and I'm done with that. Cameras flashed. Reporters came. There were speeches. But the real moment? That came after. After the cameras left. After the crowd thinned. Claire handed me a small envelope. "No return address," she said. "Came this morning." I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Handwritten. Neat, plain script. "Eleanor. They say prison gives you time to think. I don't expect you to read this, but if you are, I'm not asking for forgiveness. That's not mine to ask for. I just want you to know, the night you stood up at the gala? You were the strongest thing I've ever seen. And the smallest man I've ever been. Victor." I stared at it for a long time. No apology. No defense. Just that. Claire read it over my shoulder. "What are you gonna do?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. And I meant it. No reply. No reaction. That man took enough of my energy for one lifetime. Let him sit with it. Let him rot in the silence he built for himself. That night, I walked the halls of Reclaim alone. Just me, my cane, and the quiet hum of possibility. I peeked into each therapy room. Touched the wood trim. Ran my fingers along the ridged edge of the custom railings. Every detail was something I'd needed once, and now it was here for someone else. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. Not the fake kind people post about. The real kind. The kind that says, "You survived. And now you're more than what they tried to destroy." I stood in the doorway of my office and watched the sunrise paint the lobby in gold. This was mine. Not because I was lucky. Not because I was strong. But because I refused to stay broken. The truth is, I never hated Claire. I just couldn't forgive her, not back then. She left when our mother was dying. I stayed. She said she couldn't handle the hospitals, the machines, the smell of slow goodbyes. I told her to grow up. She told me I always wanted to be the hero. We didn't speak for 5 years. Not until the night I called her, broken and finally willing to say 2 words, "Help me." And without asking why, she showed up. Bag in hand. Bat by the door. She never brought up the past. Not once. Never apologized, never explained. She just stayed. Held my hand through hell. Drove me to therapy. Sat outside meetings with lawyers. Poured wine when I couldn't speak. Let me scream when the pain hit too hard. And never once said, "I told you so." But there was still a silence between us. A shared, unspoken wound that hadn't quite scabbed over. Until this morning. It was raining, one of those soft rains that makes the world feel like a held breath. Reclaim was quiet. Sunday morning shifts always are. I was in my office, reviewing plans for the next expansion phase, when Claire walked in with 2 coffees and something strange in her eyes. She sat. Didn't speak. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a photo. Us. As kids. At the lake. I was maybe 12. She was 9. Both of us in mismatched swimsuits, hair tangled, grinning like we owned the world. I hadn't seen that photo in 20 years. I kept it, she said. I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time since the night she came back into my life, I saw her before all the damage. The kid who followed me into every treehouse, every creek, every plan. You left me, I said. I did. You let me carry everything. I did. Silence. Then she said, and I will never stop being sorry for that. The words landed hard. She didn't say it like someone begging for forgiveness. She said it like someone telling the truth. Plain. Honest. No expectation. I nodded. She set the photo down between us. I couldn't handle watching Mom die, she said. I know that's not an excuse. But it's what happened. I thought if I ran far enough, I could pretend none of it was real. I didn't answer. I abandoned you, she said, voice flat. And then I spent years pretending you were the selfish one. That cracked something open in me. Not anger. Not sadness. Just release. I was selfish too, I said. I made you into the villain because it was easier than admitting I needed you. We sat there. 2 grown women. 2 survivors. Not of war or disease, but of love gone wrong. Of family gone cold. Of silence that lasted too long. And then? Then she reached over and took my hand. Just like she did when we were kids crossing the street. No fanfare. Just presence. And for the first time I felt whole. Not healed, not entirely. But whole. The rain kept falling. Soft. Steady. Outside the window, one of the new patients was walking laps with a nurse. A young guy. Early 20s. Fresh out of a motorcycle crash. Still angry. Still scared. But moving. 1 foot in front of the other. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Not erasing the past. Not fixing everything. Just moving forward. Victor's still in prison. Olivia's baby was born, a girl, I heard. Healthy. Strong. I sent a gift, anonymously. A soft blanket. A note that said, let her grow without lies. Reclaim is expanding. We've got a waitlist now. People from other states. People who heard the story. Not my story, their story. The one that says, you're not done. And me? I wake up every morning and stretch. Walk the halls. Sketch ideas. Read the letters patients leave behind. Sometimes, late at night, I reread Victor's letter. Not because I miss him. Because I need to remember what silence costs. And what truth gives back. I lost everything. And I built something better. Not because I was brave. Not because I was strong. Because I refused to stay down. This is my confession. My reckoning. My life, reclaimed.